Hey everyone, so today's video is going to be my review on the new Urban Decay Stoned Vibes eyeshadow palette. I thought I would share my thoughts and do two different looks for you. So this palette is available now on Urban Decay's website as well as Ulta Beauty. I will link it in the description box below so you guys can check it out if you are interested. It retails for $54. Urban Decay is a cruelty-free brand and this palette is vegan. It is a limited edition collection. There are a few other products in the collection, but I just have the palette. I did get this in the mail as PR, but of course I will share my honest thoughts, the pros and the cons. It does come with a dual-ended eyeshadow brush and a really large mirror. So the packaging is of course beautiful. I think it is so pretty, and it's a lot more eye-catching in person than I even thought it was going to be. It has like this raised crystal design on the front that catches the light in such a pretty way. So when you are storing it or if you set it down flat, this does stick up a little bit, but it's really, really pretty. The palette itself has like a good amount of weight to it, but it's not an overly large or bulky palette. Let me give you a closer look at the shadows inside. Now this palette does come with 4 somewhat matte shadows. They're not true matte shadows compared to, your typical matte formula. These all have a little bit of a sheen to them. Antidote and Hex just have like a slight sheen, so I would call them almost like semi-matte shadows, but Good Karma and Third Eye are almost more on the satin side. I think because they're not true matte shadows and they have a little bit of a sheen or more of a satin finish, depending on which one you go in with, they do blend out really nicely. So if you have a hard time with matte shadows, I think you'll actually really enjoy this formula. None of the mattes are super rich or intense on the eyes. You can build them up to a certain extent. The shade Third Eye, which is the deep purple, is obviously going to be the most intense on the eyes, but again, because it is more of a satin finish, it's not like you can get a super intense wash of purple on the eyes unless you really build it up. The shadows themselves are pretty powdery, but again, I think it's because they do have that really nice blendability, but you are going to experience a lot of powderiness, a lot of fallout as you use them. Not just the matte shadows, but even the shimmer shadows as well. So I do recommend doing your eyes first. I like the 4 matte shadows they chose, but I almost wish they would have included like one cooler toned neutral, because I feel like when I use this palette and I don't pull in any other palettes, I usually end up with like some sort of pinky red look like I'm wearing today, because all 4 of those shades just kind of blend together to create something a little bit pink or red or purple toned. So in my experience, if I want to pull in the green shadows or the blue shadow, it's hard to do with these matte shadows, so I'll usually reach for another palette, which for me isn't a big deal, but if you're someone who likes to reach for one palette, I think this might be a deal breaker for you, because it's hard to incorporate all of the colors together with these matte shadows. Now the 8 other shadows in here are what Urban Decay describes as a hybrid between a powder and a cream. If you guys have tried the ColourPop Super Shock shadows, I would say that they feel very, very similar. The ColourPop Super Shock shadows might feel a little bit more creamy. When you dip your finger into these, they definitely feel like powder shadows, but they apply like the ColourPop Super Shock shadows. Urban Decay does recommend using your finger with these shadows to get maximum color payoff, but they also said you could go in with a brush for a sheer wash of colors. So if you want the most intense finish, I would recommend using your finger. Now in the pan, they look pretty intense and vibrant. I will say that when you swatch them and when you wear them on the eyes, sometimes the colors are a little bit different, and that's typically the case when you have a little bit more of like a mixed or tie-dye shadow like these shadows. There are so many different colors and pigments going on in each one, so they're not always going to look as intense as they do in the pan. So I would just keep that in mind. Typically when I use this, I get a little bit of a lighter look on the eyes than I would expect from the color in the pan. But the shadows do apply really nicely. They're very, very smooth. They have like such a pretty shimmery finish. Again, I do experience some fallout. I know they claim that there isn't any fallout with these shadows, but I do find that as I'm doing my eyeshadow, I'll end up with glitter under my eyes. Once they're on the eyes, I don't have any fallout throughout the day, but when I'm initially applying the product, I do notice that it kind of falls a little bit. So I think that this palette is going to be a great palette for beginners. If you're new to eyeshadow and you're new to shimmery or glittery shadows, this is very, very user-friendly. You can just take your finger and apply the shadows and get a really pretty look. They're not going to be overly intense, so you don't have to worry about messing your look up. They're pretty sheer overall, so they're just easy to work with. You can use it on its own or pull it in as an accent palette and use it alongside of other shadows in your collection. I'm going to be honest and say that I think $54 is a pretty high price tag for this eyeshadow palette. I love metallic metallic shadows, when I'm looking at new eyeshadow palettes, I typically buy them for the metallics and the shimmers. So this one definitely caught my eye. And if I had spent my own money on it, I think that I would enjoy it, because I do enjoy it, but I think that I would have felt like $54 was a little bit much. If this was around like the $38 to $40 price tag, I think that would be a little bit more of a fair price. But I do think the packaging, the eyeshadow brush, the different formula all kind of play into the higher price tag. If you have a lot of shimmers or metallics or cream shadows in your collection that you love, if you have a lot of the ColourPop Super Shock shadows, I don't think you need to run out and buy this. If you're someone who loves trying new shimmer and metallic formulas, like I do, or you just love Urban Decay, I don't think you'll be disappointed in the quality of this palette. The quality is good and it performs well. I just don't think it's necessarily worth the $54 price tag. So if this collection does go on sale, I would say grab it if it intrigues you, but I wouldn't say that you need to run out and buy this and add it to your collection right away, because there is a chance you can replicate a lot of these shadows if you do own the ColourPop Super Shock shadows. I will say the formula is unique, and I don't have this formula in other eyeshadow palettes. The closest thing that I have are the ColourPop Super Shock shadows. So if you don't own those and you love like a good shimmery, sparkly look, something that's very easy to apply, I think you'll enjoy this, and I will definitely keep using it. I'll probably end up reaching for this the most as an accent palette rather than using it just on its own, because I think if I want to do like a green or blue look, I would reach into some other colorful palettes that I own. But I do think the formula is nice, and I would love to see this from Urban Decay in the future, just kind of put into some of their other palettes. So I did film 2 different looks using this palette. I did a very simple, quick and easy look, something that I would do if I was in a hurry, but I still wanted fun eyeshadow. And then I also filmed the look that I'm wearing today. I did film it on a different day, so if it looks slightly different, that's why, but I used the exact same shadows, the exact same techniques. I kind of want to do a third look using the greens or the blues along with another palette, so if that's something you want to see, let me know and I can do it in an upcoming Get Ready With Me. But let's jump into the tutorial part. I'm going to use the fluffier side of the brush and take the shade Antidote and blend that into the crease and then up as a transition color. This is a really light peachy tone shadow, so typically when I do use it, I use it as a transition color just to kind of blend things together. I do like this shadow, and I think it blends out nicely for me because there are so many cooler toned shimmer shadows in the palette. I think it might have been nice to see a little bit of a cooler toned transition color if they were going to put a transition color in the palette. This shadow looks great with a couple of the warmer shadows that I'm going to use today, but typically I don't reach for this one if I am going in with the blues or the purples. I'm just going to do the same thing on the other eye. I'll cut out all of the work that I do on the left eye just to save some time. I'm going to use the same brush and take a little bit of the shade Hex and just blend that into the crease just to darken things up a little bit. I am going to keep this look a little bit on the lighter side, so I don't want to go in with too much of the shadow. I just want to create a very, very simple, easy, everyday look to show you guys what you can get out of this palette if you are in a hurry or you don't want to put in a lot of time. If you guys like the matte shadows in the Urban Decay Naked palettes, I think you'll like these. They're very, very light and smooth, easy to work with. When you swatch these, they do have a little bit of a sheen to them, so they're not complete matte shadows, which I think makes them a little bit better for blending. Next, I'm going to take the shade Tiger's Eye and just apply this with my ring finger all over the lid. These metallics look amazing on the eyes. They kind of have like a little bit of a wet look to them. This is definitely one of my favorite shadows in the palette because it just looks so stunning, and it looks really pretty with, you know, the shadows in this palette, but any other palette as well. I love how simple this eye look is, so I'm going to keep things very, very light on the lower lash line. I'm just going to take a small amount of Antidote and then just the tiniest amount of Hex and just blend that on the lower lash line. I'm really going to focus this on the outer corner. I have a tendency to go pretty heavy on my lower lash line, but I just want to keep things pretty simple and light and easy today. I am going to use the ColourPop Cream Gel Liner in the shade Honey Dude, which is just a light nude, and run this on my waterline just to brighten things up. You know what? I think I'm going to skip liquid liner, which isn't typical for me because I love winged liner, but I just like how light and shimmery this look is. So I'm going to go in with a lot of mascara. I'm going to kick things off with the Essence Volume Booster Lash Primer. This is just going to help make my lashes even more dramatic. I always think it looks so funny when you just have the lash primer on, but I'm going to go in with the e.l.f. Keep Your Curl mascara. I've really been enjoying this one as well because it does lift and curl, but when you use the lash primer in addition to this, your lashes look so long and voluminous at the same time. So I'll be right back after I apply this. To finish up, I'm just going to take a little bit of the shade Good Karma and run that on my brow bone just to highlight. On the lips, I'm just wearing the Buxom lip gloss in the shade Brook, and this is how the final look turned out. It's very, very simple. If I wasn't sitting down and filming and talking, it would probably take me like 5 or 10 minutes at the very, very most, not even 10 minutes, because I just used a couple of shadows. So with this palette, you can definitely create something very, very simple. My next look will be a little bit more smoky and intense, but this is how the first one turned out. Okay, so moving on to the second look, I want to do a little bit more of a dramatic look using the purples and some pinky tones. Now, because there are only 4 matte shadows in the palette, I'll kind of be kicking it off in the same way. So I'm going to take the dual-ended eyeshadow brush and start with the shade Antidote and blend that into the crease. Now, I'm not going to take as much of this shadow. I'm really just going to go in with a light layer to create a very, very subtle transition because I'm going to focus the majority of the shadows on the lid and the outer corner and do something a little bit more smoky. So that's it. I'm going to do the other eye and then I'll be right back. Next, I'm going to go in with a little bit of the shade Hex and just blend that into the crease. And again, I don't want to apply too much. I went a little bit heavier with these 2 shades for the last look, but these aren't going to be the main focus. I'm just going to use them so I can build up the purple and it doesn't look so harsh between my lid and my brow bone. So now I'm going to go in with a little bit of the shade Third Eye and I'm going to start blending that into the outer corner and then up into the crease. I'm actually going to start by kind of packing it on the outer corner. This matte shadow does have a little bit more of a sheen compared to some of the other matte shadows in the palette, which again, I do think makes it very, very easy to blend out onto the eyes. So I really want to focus the depth right in the outer corner and then I'll just lightly blend it into the crease to make sure everything looks really seamless. I do experience a good amount of fallout with this shadow, as you can see. I mean, the matte shadows as a whole are pretty powdery. You can't really tell as much with the other ones because they're definitely on the lighter side, but you can tell with this deeper purple. I'm just going to go back in with the Urban Decay brush, which does have a little bit of shadow left over, and kind of work that up a little bit higher just to, again, kind of blend everything together really, really well. Just going to brush away that fallout. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing on the other eye and I'll be right back. You know what, I'm actually going to go a little bit darker, so I'm just going to do the same thing with a second layer of shadow and maybe not blend it out quite as much because I really do want that outer corner to be pretty dark. I'm going to take the shade Meditate on my ring finger and I'm just going to place this all over the lid. I might avoid like the very, very outer corner, but oh, this is so pretty. I mean, these shadows look pretty in the pan, but they just give your eyes like such a nice wet look. Now this is obviously really pretty on its own. You can stop here, but I am going to go in with the shade Vibes, which is just a little bit more sparkly, and I'm going to really focus that on the center of the lid. This is really going to add just a lot of light and shimmer to the eyes. This kind of has like a cooler toned silvery look to it, so it might take away just a little bit of that purple. So I might kind of go back and forth because I do want the purple to show through, but I feel like it kind of gives it like a pretty silvery touch. Now I'm just going to take a little bit of the shade Good Karma, which is like the pretty highlight shade, and I'm just going to kind of run that along the crease. Not the crease, like the brow bone, anywhere where the transition color kind of ends. I'm just going to line my eyes using the Urban Decay Perversion liquid liner, and then I'll be right back to do the lower lash line. So for the lower lash line, I'm just going to go in with the shade Third Eye and start blending that out. I'm not completely sure what I want to do on the lower lash line, whether I want it to be super dramatic with a dark liner or just go in with shadows. So I'm just going to kick it off with this, and then we'll see. I'm going to take a little bit of the Urban Decay 24/7 Glide On Eye Pencil in the shade Love Drug, and I'm just going to run this on the waterline. I'm going to do the same thing for the lashes, so I'll just skip this, but I'm going to use the Essence Volume Booster Lash Primer and then just go in with the e.l.f. Keep Your Curl Mascara. Now to finish it off, I'm just going to take a little bit of the shade Vibes and just place that right in the inner corner. Honestly, that inner corner highlight's not really doing it for me, so I'm just going to tone it down with a little bit of the shade Good Karma. So on the lips, I'm just wearing the Fenty Gloss Bomb in the shade Hot Chocolate, which is a really pretty kind of cooler toned nude. And this is the final look. So this is a little bit more of a dramatic look compared to the first one, but you can definitely keep it light and simple or go a little bit more dramatic like I did today. So in conclusion, I do think that this is a really pretty palette. I really enjoy the looks that I've been able to create with it. And I also love the fact that you do get some interesting, unique shimmers that you don't typically see in a lot of other palettes, especially Urban Decay palettes. I personally get so excited about like really beautiful shimmer shadows, and I like the fact that these kind of have a wet look on the eyes. So I will be reaching for this palette a lot. I think it's really fun and interesting. I would love to see Urban Decay create more of these shadows in the future. So I do enjoy it. But that being said, like I mentioned earlier, $54 is a lot of money to spend on this palette. So I wouldn't grab it unless the shimmer shadows really speak to you and you don't have anything like them in your collection. So I hope my video was helpful for you if you're trying to decide whether or not you should grab it. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. I will definitely get back to you guys. And if you tried this palette, I would love to hear your thoughts and whether or not you guys are enjoying it or you think it's worth the money. So let me know in the comment section below, but I'll see you guys very soon with a new video. Bye.